Somebody linked this to me. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what an iSpoof is, but apparently this man is a fraudster guilty of a $100 million scam, and he's just been sentenced to 13 years. This is BBC. I assume this is in the UK. Yeah, it is UK's biggest fraud sting. I obviously am not in the UK at the moment, and even if I was, I don't watch the news. I pretty much only pay attention to the news when it's related to my life in some way, or if I'm doing it for news articles like this to just read and laugh at. But apparently this dude has been scamming people for $100 million. Well, £100 million even, so even more. TJ Fletcher, 35, was the founder and leading administrator of a sophisticated banking scam called iSpoof, which was brought down last year in the UK's biggest fraud sting. Was in the UK last year, still didn't hear about it, pay attention to nothing in real life, especially if it's in the UK. The judge said it was a harrowing experience for all of the victims. Fletcher pleaded guilty to 4 charges last month, including making or supplying an article to use in fraud. So what is it? What were they doing? The 35-year-old behind the iSpoof website also admitted encouraging or assisting the commission of an offence, possession of criminal property, and transferring criminal property between 30th of November 2020 and 8th of November 2022. So he was only scamming for 2 years, and it was 100 mil. Get this man a cryptocurrency. Get this man a Binance account and an on-ramp so he can put some money on. He was playing in the little leagues in real life where people typically do get caught for fraud and can only get 100 mil in 2 years. If he was in crypto, he could have been the next FTX. He could have been $40 billion down the pisser. People suffer damage to businesses, sleeplessness, depression, emotional stress, personal finance problems, and fallouts with family members, she said. Yeah, like, this is what people don't see about people being scammed and defrauded, is that it obviously harms families, it harms personal lives, it harms relationships. Because a lot of people make bad decisions when it's not entirely their decision, or they just turn into, you know, it does stuff to them after they make a bad decision, such as just become withdrawn, depressed, angry, you know, lash out at people close to them. And obviously some people invest or lose money due to scams when it's their and their partner's money. You know, if you're in a relationship and you have shared finance and you get scammed or you invest in a fraud or whatever, that not only impacts you, it impacts your partner, potentially your kids, potentially parents, things like that. So yeah, this shit it's real bad. Obviously, we mostly make light of it, make fun of the crypto scams and things like that. Partially because if you didn't, there's the old saying, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. Like, people throwing money at what is, to me, a blatantly obvious scam, but they're doing so to try and better their life. It's the same reason people play the lottery every week, or however long, you know, the lottery is. I have no fucking idea. I don't live like a normal person in society, okay? But it's the same thing. People want to get rich. They want to claw their way out the gutter. And they've heard all the flowery stories about how people did it with investing. And that's what rich people will say, you know, invest, invest, invest. And a lot of times people don't know what the fuck they're investing in. And then they invest in something and they fucking goof. Or they give money to a fraudster. I don't even know what this fraud is. I'm just speaking in general terms. So Judge Sally Cahill, KC, told Fletcher he did not care about the victims, adding, quote, "The late expression of remorse is regret for being caught rather than empathy for your victims." I always love when judges just no bullshit, no fucking around, just tell people straight to their face what the reality is. I'm the judge, I'm handing down this sentence, and I'm telling you to your face, we know you have no remorse. You just care that you got caught. Because if you had remorse, you wouldn't have been doing it. Like, nobody needs $100 million. And you know what you're doing is wrong. Getting caught and then being remorseful, everyone knows what that is. Fraudsters were offered tools that enabled them to disguise phone calls so they appeared to be from a trusted organization. Oh, so that's why it's called iSpoof. I assume I standing for either technology or, of course, Apple, and then spoof being spoofing what their number is. So they did this for banks, meaning they could empty their targets' accounts. Holy shit, this is crazy. They would pose as employees of banks including Barclays, Santander, HSBC, Lloyds, Halifax, First Direct, NatWest, Nationwide, and TSB, which is basically, if you're not from the UK, these are all the big banks in the UK. If you live in the UK, I don't know if these are all of them. Chances are they operate the vast majority of people in the UK, so the vast majority of the money. So how banks usually work in the UK, just from my experience, if they call you, it will show as a trusted number. And then obviously when you answer, they'll say where they're from, and then they'll get you to verify who you are. So they'll get you to tell them, you know, whatever security questions they have. Sometimes the last 4 digits on your card, sometimes your last name, your date of birth, where you live, your postcode, things like this. It's the same as when you call in. And it's just to verify, obviously due to the fact that it's data protection, they need to know that they're talking to the real person who opened the account. And obviously a lot of that information is stuff you give over to somebody. And obviously if you look at your phone and it literally says it's Barclays, your bank, you're gonna think it's Barclays. I think a lot of scams a lot of the time are really easy to root out. And obviously there will be elements to this that was, because obviously if you've ever spoken to a bank over the phone, whether you've called them or they've called you, which can happen both ways, you know they only ask you for like tidbits of information, not like full account details, passwords, anything like that. So there's still obviously the social element that they have to circumvent, which is you telling them the stuff. If they call you and you think it's fishy that they're asking you for things that a bank would never ask you, and banks always tell you this, even when you call, they always say in the automated voice before they put you through to a person. I don't know if this is by law or not, but it's pretty much every time you call a bank, it'll say, we'll never ask you for X, Y, and Z. At least with mine, I've heard that a whole bunch of times. You even get this on like online games and stuff. They will never ask you for your password. When you get emailed by a company, it'll always say, we'll never ask you for your details. So obviously when these were calling, people were fucking up when they were answering, thinking it was them, and then they were asking for more than just the last 4 digits, postcode, things like that. The judge said that $100 million of global losses were a conservative estimate and there could have been more. Holy shit. More than 100 mil in 2 years. In the UK alone, 43 mil was lost and one victim lost $3 million. £3 million pounds. I'm in America brain right now. This is actually fucking mad. This technology to spoof the number is actually a game changer. Because like I say, if just some random number calls you, almost everybody either has that on block, like random numbers calling you typically are filtered out. You can do this manually, or a lot of phone companies do this as well. But obviously, if you see it come up as your bank, like I would 100% answer, and I'd go through the process with them until I recognize that they're asking for more. So I can imagine a lot of people just not having that click in their brain where they're like, they don't ever ask this info. But man, one victim losing £3 million. I'm not going to call people who fell for this stupid, but I would also say that somebody who has £3 million in cash in their bank, in assets, that's just in money in their bank to be transferred out, I would have thought somebody that had access to such a vast wealth wouldn't fall for just telling somebody their bank details over the phone, because I've got to imagine that's what it is. Some 4,785 people were reported being targeted by action fraud, lost an average of £10,000 according to police. Jesus Christ. Fletcher of Western Gateway in East London made about £2 million from the iSpoof website and bought a £230,000 Lamborghini, 2 Range Rovers worth $110,000 each, and an £11,000 Rolex. Mate, he just got a bog standard Rolex. £11,000 like just a normal Rolex. He didn't even get a good one. It just goes to show that other than scamming people, this dude's not very business savvy whatsoever. You've got £2 million and you spend almost a quarter of it on cars. Like, what are you doing, brother? The website made about 3.2 million in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Of course it's involved. Of course, it always is. With the lion's share ending up with Fletcher prosecutor John whatever this guy's name is, Johnny O. What makes this case unusual is that the thousands who lost money through sophisticated scams were not direct victims of Fletcher and his junior partners, but they were all victims of fraud directly facilitated by the iSpoof website. The prosecution described the business setup so that elements of detailed research and development on one hand and marketing on the other encouraged criminals to cash in. Fletcher, who had 18 previous convictions, has been sentenced to 13 years and 4 months in prison. Now, I don't know if I'm about to out myself as somebody who I guess is not super tolerant to crime, but I think if you've got 18 previous convictions and you've just been caught defrauding thousands of people for tens of millions of dollars, maybe 13 years is not enough, because obviously 18 previous convictions. The convictions are when they've convicted you. It's not a charge. It's when they've decided you are guilty in a criminal court, which means it's not on the balance of probability. It's not a 50-50. It's not a maybe. And they've done that to you 18 times, 18 convictions. You've done 18 things that are illegal and been convicted for them. And then you've done this and you're getting 13 years and 4 months. I don't know. Because obviously, on one hand, prison is supposed to rehabilitate people. But on the other hand, if you've done 18 convictions and you've still not been rehabilitated, it's obviously not worked, has it? Like, it just hasn't. Then again, 13 years is a long time. People can change in 13 years. People can change in 5 years. It depends, I guess, on his previous convictions. What were they for? I don't know. It's difficult, I guess. The judge praised the Metropolitan Police for its investigation, which involves 700 days of work and 3 detectives for the larger scale of investigation conducted by the force. The Met said at its peak, iSpoof had 59,000 users, with up to 20 people per minute targeted at one point by callers using technology bought from the site. Oh, so basically they were selling the technology to other people, and people were using it to defraud people. Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley said, closing down iSpoof has been the UK's biggest ever fraud operation and was a collective effort. Good job. Good job. He said the force was proud to have taken down criminals at the top of this fraudulent network, describing them as heartless people. True. iSpoof was created in December 2020, and users paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a month for its features. That's fucking insane. How much money must you be making to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds a month for features? Unless they mean combined as users and not like, oh, it costs this much for one set of people to have keys and access to the full suite or whatever. Simon Baker Casey, defending, said Fletcher was an extremely bright young man who has a young son, adding it is extremely unfortunate that intellect was not challenged into gainful activities. True, yeah, obviously he's clever. Like, if he's done this, smart guy. Just used it in completely the wrong way. His guilty plea reflects his genuine regret and remorse bullshit for his actions and his sincere wish to apologise to those who have suffered as a result of the frauds perpetuated against them as a result of the iSpoof website. You replace this apology, Mr. Lawyer Man, with, as a result of me, I did this, not the lawyer, obviously. The guy who you're apologising on behalf of, who said he's sorry and he's remorseful, it wasn't because the iSpoof website, this is a game people play with words, it was because of you. And you know how we know it's because of you? Because you pled guilty to it, and you don't suffer regret and remorse. You suffer regret and remorse because you were caught, because you continue doing it, knowing what you were doing was defrauding people the whole time, ruining lives. I hate how people get let off with stuff like this. Not in the sense of, obviously, he's going to prison, he's not getting let off, but somebody speaking on your behalf. I know this is what you've got to do and it's part of the game. But language is used to specifically convey ideas and thoughts to other people. And when you pled guilty to a crime, you created this. It's not the website that defrauded people, it's you. If you can't even admit to that, how genuine is your regret and remorse? And some people might say, oh, it's, you know, just words. It's just how it's been written. I think if you pay attention to anything legally related, you know, if you've ever dealt with a lawyer, nothing is just words. It all has a purpose, and the way you say things is oftentimes more important than what you actually say. It's the same thing in PR and marketing, and you see this with businesses all the time. So yeah, I don't forgive bullshit like saying it's the website. Stuff like that, even if it's very minuscule in the overall, just bothers me. You could just come out and say, yeah, it was me. It was a result of me, but no. So there we go. Biggest fraud in the UK that they brought down. Good job. Obviously, this not being a thing anymore is amazing, but the fact that this can exist is crazy. That is really crazy. Because like I say, how many people would pick up the phone to something that said, oh, it's Barclays Bank, it's NatWest Bank, it's your bank, which usually is from verified numbers that are like that because they're obviously critical infrastructure. You need to know if that is your bank so you can trust them. So if you can't even trust that, man, that's scary. Especially for older people, because I know they're more likely to be scammed than younger people, especially if somebody's calling their phone and it isn't something tech related. But there we go. Glad you've gone to prison. Hopefully they catch a bunch of the people who are also using it, get them in prison as well. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace out.